Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of New Music Finds, where I like to collect together all the different things that I picked up in the past week. And I get it from different places like my local record store, but also online retail like Amazon, eBay, and more. I've got a bunch of different stuff this go around. I've got some vinyl, CDs, some music memorabilia stuff. So a lot of cool things going on here. I think I've got 18 items to run through with you, and we're going to dive into that in just a bit. But before we start, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also, leave a comment, hit like, all those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date on really cool things just like this with New Music Finds, where hopefully it turns you onto some new stuff yourself. Okay, so kicking things off, we're starting off with new releases. And when I did my weekly What Just Dropped at the record store, which I've been able to film recently at Sound Exchange, that won't happen forever, but just the way the schedule has worked out, I've been able to do that recently. But there's always going to be some things that Anthony doesn't know about or doesn't think will sell in his store. And so there's going to be things that I will still continue to order and get differently. And this being one of them. The brand new Choir Boys album, Vaudeer Street. This one here is actually a sort of reunion album because we've got three of the original guys in the band here coming back together. So if you don't know the story about, I want to say around 2021, 2022, somewhere in that time frame, the current version of the band kicked frontman Spike out of it. And at that time, one of the guitar players and Spike, the front man, were the only two original guys left. So Spike goes off and decides to bring back in the original bassist, the original guitar player, Guy Bailey, but unfortunately he passed away before recording this album. But they did bring in the drummer who joined in 1990. While he did not play on A Bit of What You Fancy, he does appear on the follow-up album, though he came in, I believe, in time for the tour and went out and did the tour because he joins in 1990, which is the same year A Bit of What You Fancy came out. But all in all, we've got three guys from the original era of the band, and taking over on guitar, this is the cool part, it's Luke Morley of Thunder. So you've got Thunder guitarist coming in with Choir Boys frontman and other guys in order to make a new Choir Boys album. And I gotta say, this album here is solid from start to finish. It's really, really good. So definitely check it out if you're a fan. And if you're only ever a fan of the band back during the original era with these two albums here, it's definitely time to check out the band again. Okay, next up, we got a guy returning after, I believe, 18 long years of not having a solo album out. I'm talking about Grand Funk Railroad frontman Mark Farner, or I should say original frontman, because he's not with the band. They still go out and play live, but they haven't made an album in ages, probably a good 40 years for them. But Mark Farner, who did go off and do solo stuff, hasn't made an album. Like I said, I think it's been about 18 years, and we now get this one, Closer to My Home. Now, I wasn't too intrigued when I heard about this here. I didn't quite know what to expect, but I started doing some research on it and found out that Mark Slaughter of Slaughter is in here doing production, playing guitar, other instruments on here. I couldn't find any breakdown as to who wrote what, and there's not a lot of information online, so I don't know if he did any of the co-writes with Mark Farner. They're both named Mark, so who are we talking about, right? But I gotta say, I could easily listen to this and hear Slaughter-style writing with Mark Farner singing. Now, that doesn't mean it's a metal-sounding album. I just mean it's that quality and it's that good, and I hear that in it, and so it made for a very fun listen to hear a brand new Mark Farner album, which he sounds fantastic vocally, and then to hear the stuff that Mark Slaughter brings to it. So that was kind of a cool find. Like I said, I didn't quite know what to expect. They're not promoting it around that, but I started reading up on it and couldn't believe who was part of it. This next one came out in 2022 but for whatever reason has a quote new release, and I think it's on Rhino Records, but or maybe it's the band's website, but all in all, it's a new release coming out to the world. INXS, and this is live at the US Festival where they performed the album Shabu Shaba essentially in its entirety. It's got 9 tracks on here. I think the original album had 10. There's one track that is missing. And so I guess all 9 of those were performed at the US Festival show. And I don't know if they didn't perform anything else or literally this was their set or what it is, but to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Shabu Shaba, they have released this, which has essentially the full album in its entirety on here. And I think that's really cool. I didn't actually know that going into it. I thought it was just a live show recorded at the US Festival, and I kind of was surprised that they wrote Shabu Shaba on it and 40 and all that sort of stuff. And then as I checked the track listing on it after getting it, I realized why, and it made it even better. It's so much more enjoyable now knowing that. And I guess I also have to say that probably my favorite of the earlier era albums is Shabu Shaba. So getting a live performance of it, it was very cool. And the quality of the recording is also very good because there's been some other recordings released from the US Festival in recent years that is nowhere near up to par in my opinion. But this one here, very good. All right, so most of you guys know that Rat reissued Out of the Cellar along with their other 4 studio albums from that era, so all 5 of the original era. And this one has a lenticular color on it, which I think is just cool, going from the blue to the yellow in there. No movement in terms of the figure or anything, but the color part of it changes, which is awesome. But I picked it up in order to get this 7-inch here, which is an unreleased song from the original 83 sessions called Reach for the Sky. Of course, their 4th studio album would later get that as a title, but here it is. And it's the same track on both sides, but it is on Dayglow Orange vinyl, which is very cool. And the album itself is on red and black splatter. Let's pull this out and see. And just so you also know, the lenticular cover is separate. So we get that part of it here. We do get the full sleeve, although no lyric or anything like that. And check that out. How cool is that? So very cool to get it. I don't hear anything different in the mastering, like whether this has been a remaster or anything, and they're not specifically promoting it as such, so I don't know which version they are using for it, but I wanted to pick it up for the 7-inch, so that's why it's in the collection now, and also why I chose not to pick up the CD version, which does have that. It's just tacked on as a bonus track. I wanted to have the actual art and everything like that, so I picked that up. And while at the record store, I didn't even know this had come out for Rocktober, which is when I believe Rhino Records releases a bunch of cool, unique things or reissue stuff, and one of them being a Porno for Pyros album, which is essentially a greatest hits, but it's a greatest and latest because they've got 3 new songs on here, ones that they've released, I guess, over the last year or so. So those appear on here now. And then you've got selections of tracks from the 2 albums that they made, and you get a remix that's on here, 10 tracks total, but all in all fairly cool because it's not just a straight greatest hits. We get some new, we get some rarity stuff, and we get some album stuff, and we get the big hits. But all in all, that's very cool. And whenever they do the Rocktober, this was $24.98, so good price on that, unlike the Rat, which I think was $38 or $39. So. And then I talked about this one, I think last week, but either way, you saw that I picked up the recent Thin Lizzy Johnny the Fox 2024 remix vinyl. So I finally found Jailbreak, and this one being in a black and white cover instead of the typical colored one that you would expect. but getting this was very, very cool to add to the collection because of that being the 2024 remix version. I wasn't able to get the box set on CD, and just the way that it was done, it didn't intrigue me for what I had to pay in order to pick that up, and it sold out instantly. But when I found out that I could get the albums themselves on vinyl, that sounded like a great way to do it because I also got unique album art with each one, and it's been a lot of fun going through those. Okay, so now this is also new. This technically, hit the market November 1, but there was no lead up to it. I think they kind of announced it right on that day or just a few days before, sort of thing. And they didn't even give it a date. It was just, here it is, press statement, we're releasing this, and here it is. You can go buy it. And it's not available in stores. You have to go to rhino.com to get the new Alice Cooper Muscle of Love box set edition, deluxe edition, celebrating 51 years, because it's a 73 album, but they're releasing it in 2024. So I did a full unboxing of this. It's 2 CDs and a Blu-ray. So you get the original album remastered, and then you get an album's worth of outtakes and rarities and stuff like that. Plus you get the Blu-ray, which has quadraphonic mixes on it, a really in-depth booklet, as well as some reproduction memorabilia and stuff like that. But that came out, which was really cool. And while I was searching for that, I first had gone over to Alice Cooper's website thinking he was selling it before I found out it was on Rhino. And when I was over on his website, I found this, an Alice Cooper coin, Alice Cooper for President. And let's see, on the back side, if I can hold it up the right way so that you can read it. Essentially, it's a circular thing, but it basically says a troubled man for troubled times. And that was the, quote, platform that Alice Cooper was running on as his, Alice Cooper for President. He does that every so often, reignites his campaign that he originally did back in the 70s when he had the Elected song out. But anyways, I thought that was kind of cool, a two-sided gold Alice Cooper coin for $10 that I picked up off his website. I like memorabilia and cool stuff like that. And then since I was on such an Alice Cooper kick, I decided it was time to finally add these 2 deluxe editions to my collection, Killer and School's Out, both of them having bonus discs in them of live shows along with some outtakes or alternate versions of songs and things like that. On here, I have to say the remastered quality of both of these albums really, really do it justice. If I had known that the remastering was so good, I probably would have picked these up when they came out maybe a year or so ago. But I wasn't intrigued because of the live album aspect. So a lot of times I will simply wait on those things until I'm having a moment, I guess, if you will. I'm on an Alice Cooper kick, right? So getting that box and finding that coin and those things arriving and wanting more, but I already own all his albums. I was able to pick these up and enjoy them. So those finally got added to the collection, and I've had a lot of fun going through that stuff and enjoying it. And that's, for me at least, the right time to do it. If I just buy them to buy them at the time of release, I don't always enjoy them as much. And it's also one of those things like, if it sells out, it's okay. It's kind of like the Thin Lizzy box set. The recent one, 1976, I'm okay that it sold out, that I didn't get one because it really didn't have stuff that I wanted. And I found the stuff that I wanted in a different way. If I ever come across the box set, I may pick it up, but it's going to have to be for a good deal. Anyway, moving on, this is another thing that's like that. This came out a while back, and I wanted it, but I didn't want to pay the $20+ that was the cost to import this from Japan, and I didn't want a 7-inch, I wanted a CD. Def Leppard's most recent CD single, because it really dropped as a digital track, called Just Like 73. 2 versions on this. You get the Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. He joins on guitar. And then you get what they call the alternate version, which is really just no Tom Morello and the 2 guitar players and Def Leppard playing all of the soloing on here. And I have to say, I actually like that one a lot better. It sounds more Def Leppard to me. But I do like what Tom Morello brings to the track, and it was fun to hear it because it wasn't so night and day different that I thought it felt out of place, but it was also very clear that it was Tom Morello and not him trying to to emulate Def Leppard. So that part of it was cool. Don't come in and play something where I don't really know who it is, except the fact that you're telling me. Come in and make it stand out. And they did that with Tom Morello. But all in all, yeah, so I finally decided it was time to add this because if you watched recent weeks, I picked up the U2 Atomic City CD single version. I didn't want the 7-inch of that. I finally decided it was time to get that. That was the same sort of thing like with the Alice Cooper stuff where they're getting ready to drop on November 22nd, the deluxe edition of How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, now called How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb. And I was gearing up for it, having a U2 thing. And I finally said, now's the time to get it because I will really enjoy having it at this moment. And so that's where sometimes it's right for me to pick things up at that time. And this one being one of them, just it was, oh, I'm finally picking up these other CD singles. I picked up Halloween and their Pumpkins United song that was a CD single only. And that led me to the U2, which led me to the Def Leppard. And previous to that had been the Guns N' Roses. And, you know, it is cool though that Japan releases the CD single versions of things when they're not getting wider releases in either Europe or the US. And I have to keep hoping that Japan keeps doing that for us CD fanatics. Okay, in last week's episode, I talked about having picked up the King's X promo CD called Building Blocks that was a selections of a kind of greatest hits given to radio stations that they could play. And I talked about having just ordered the Ozzy Osborne Live and Loud sampler. So Live and Loud being an album, I don't know if this came out in 91 or 92, but it was after the No More Tears album and tour cycle. So it's probably 92. But it's a double album, and this is a single album. So a selections of stuff on here, and I just really liked that idea that it was edited down to a single disc version of it. And I always liked the album. I'm just not a big fan of double live albums. And same thing with compilations. I prefer single disc compilations to double disc compilations. I'm never in the mood to listen to 2 hours straight of anything. It's like 45 minutes or an hour. That seems like the right amount of time for me. But yeah, so I got this. That was cool. Ordered that off eBay. And because of the Thin Lizzy remix that I picked up for Jailbreak, I then went down the road of picking up the 3 remaining Thin Lizzy albums that I didn't have. And this one here, Nightlife, I was really surprised that I didn't have this one in the collection. I thought that this one here had been in my collection, and I went out and checked, and sure enough, it was not. So that was a cool find because I was actually able to go get something that I had wanted and just thought I already had, but I didn't. So I picked that one up. But the other 2 that I didn't have in the collection was the debut album and the 3rd studio album. And I picked up the deluxe editions that have bonus material on them and found that there was these 1977 remixes with overdubs on it where they basically tried to bring songs from the first 3 albums up to the level of what the band sounded like in the late 70s, sort of similar to what ZZ Top did with their stuff out of the 70s, bringing it up for the 80s when they re-released that music as the 6-pack that they put out. And so that was a kind of a cool find, which led me to try to hunt down compilations and stuff that may have gathered that up. And this is one that had some of it on it. It is not a compilation that did all of it, Rockers, but there is one, I believe, that is simply called Rocker that has the bulk of it. There was also another one that was, it was similar in title to the Shades of a Blue Orphanage Continued or something like that. Between those 2 albums, they did compile a lot of that sort of stuff, and those have only been available on LP. I don't believe they were ever issued a CD, at least so far I haven't found that stuff yet, but if I can find those on LP, I'll probably be picking them up. But at least until that time, I've got those 3 or 4 tracks a piece as bonus tracks on these. I just wish they'd remix the whole albums of those in that style because I really like the remixes. And with what they're doing with the acoustic sessions where those have been stripped down, keeping Phil Lynott's vocals and Brian Downey's drums and Eric Bell coming back in and recording new acoustic parts. It's essentially the same thing. It's a remix with new overdubs on it to bring it current. And that's what led me to picking these up, because I said, oh, they've kind of done this before, and let me check out what that stuff is. Not an entirely new thing, you know. Some people are losing their minds about what Thin Lizzy is doing with the remixes and stuff. And it's like, nah, this is stuff that the band has been doing since the 70s, so get over it already. All right, and I picked up a few other things here. Picked up the Endless Summer 2 soundtrack, which was done by Gary Hoey. It's all instrumental. He does a cool cover of the song Lowrider on here, and another cover of the song Linus and Lucy from the Peanuts. Very cool. He always does great cover songs where he interprets them lead guitar wise. But then the rest of the stuff on here is very good. I had it back in the day. I got rid of it, so I was glad to add it back in. And then Helicopters, Head Off. So reissue of their last album before reuniting, but it was a covers album. I think Rock and Roll is Dead was the final album of original material, but I didn't even know this was a covers album when I picked it up. When I did the What Just Dropped video for you and I showed you guys this, I just thought it was one of their mini albums, which it is, but I mean, I didn't know it was a covers album. And it wasn't until I got home and I was listening to it, I was really enjoying it. And I thought I want to know a little more about it. So I went online, looked up Wikipedia, only to find out it's a covers album. And I was very surprised by that, because it very, very much sounds like the Helicopters. It sounds like they wrote this stuff. So it's either they pick songs that are written in the same style they are, or they totally turn these songs into their own versions. I don't know which it is, because I haven't checked out the original artists. I didn't recognize any of the names of those artists. But I'm really digging this, and I probably will go check some of those artists out now because of how much I like that album. All right, and the last thing that I picked up is a group called Zombie, and this is on Relapse Records, so I always assumed it was like death metal or something, but it's not. It's total synthwave stuff, instrumental. Something popped up in one of my feeds, and I thought, oh, I remember that band from, you know, back in the day. Well, when I say back in the day, I mean like maybe early 2000s or something. I don't know when they started, but they've been around for a little while. And then I saw this album cover, and it just totally intrigued me as like one of those sort of Storm Thurgeson or Hypnosis album covers. And I thought, I gotta check out who this is. If they're making album covers like that, what do they sound like? And the music totally turned out to be very fitting for me. Like I said, it's synthwave instrumental stuff. Here's the two guys inside. Once you see the guys inside, you know that it's newer material. But you see that album cover or the back cover of this. It's 6 tracks. I think it's really good. If you're a synthwave fan, check them out. And so there you go. That is all the stuff that I picked up over this past week. Like I said, I think there was 18 items here, but I got new stuff. I've got old stuff. I got some promo stuff. I got some memorabilia. I got website only. It just really pays to search out stuff, and I do that all the time. And of course, that's what I try to give you guys in the music news roundup segments that I post every Friday, is announce cool things like this, which I had announced this the week earlier. And at that time, at least, it was, I could not get it to the order to go through for me. They must have been having a problem with their website. And I went back about a week later and it was totally fine. So that is up and running. You can get that now. And yeah, I just found a bunch of cool stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Maybe turn you on to something new. That would be the best thing I could hope for out of any video off this channel. I love turning you guys on to new music any which way I can. But if nothing else, maybe I helped you remember something you have in your collection that you can go pull out and enjoy, like maybe some of that old Thin Lizzy. All right, everyone, take care. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye.